We're not going to be looking at a specific product or industry type. Instead, I want to go back to basics and talk about some really common pricing models and then pricing factors, which are influences on how much you can charge. Your pricing model, I think you really should just keep to yourself. It is not a concern to your customer. A lot of what I see small business owners doing as a mistake, using their business model or their costs to justify prices. But the cost to you is not your consumer's concern. They don't care how much your business costs to run. They only care about the value that they're receiving from the thing that they're buying from you. Instead, you focused on pricing factors as justification for why your prices are set the way they are, then that is something that your consumer cares about because it is reflected in the value that they get. So I really want to draw the line between these two concepts today, and hopefully by the end of this video, you understand the parts of your price that you keep to yourself and the parts of your price that you push quite hard in your marketing to get more sales, to get higher profit margins, to grow your business, to justify price increases, and to be more confident when you're putting your price in front of people. Another distinction I want to draw before we get into this is the difference between pricing and price point. Your price point is part of pricing, but pricing is a lot more. So your price point is the amount on your product tag. If it is $5, that's your price point. If it's $15, that's the price point. If it's $100, that's also a price point. Your pricing is your positioning. It's where you are in comparison to competitors. It's how you message your price point. It's when you put your price point in front of someone. It is how you put it in front of someone. It's all the things that you put around it to justify it. And that is more what the pricing factors that we're going to go through are a lot more flexible and malleable to use in your marketing to convince customers to buy your product. When it comes to pricing models, there's really like an infinite number of options and you can change it up however you want. What I have here is 9 common ones that I encounter a lot with the clients that I work with and very easy to understand. The first one here is cost plus. It's very basic. It's how much it costs to create your product plus how much profit you want to make. Very, very simple. Very common. That's number 1. Number 2 is usage based. So this is more common in things where you're selling data. A phone plan is a good example. How many minutes of calls you get, how many text messages you get, how many kilobytes or megabytes you get in your plan, your data. Very easy to understand that one as well. This model can get really complicated. It is things like AI products where they're selling tokens and how many tokens you're burning, or data warehouse, data lake type products. It gets very complicated when you're doing API calls and these cost like fractions of cents to do, but you're doing hundreds of thousands of them. So this is actually quite a spectrum of simple to complicated in terms of usage-based pricing. The next one is project versus annual. So this will be month versus annual, or it's a time-based subscription. We just did a video on Spotify last week. That's a really good example. You can pay for Spotify annually. You can pay per month. You can pay for a certain amount of time. When you get into services and stuff, you can also do retainer or project rates. That's very similar. The next one is competitor based. This one is not one that I would recommend, to be honest. It's where you look at how much your competitors charge and you choose to either go above or below them. If you're choosing to go below them, it becomes a race to the bottom in terms of pricing and who can deliver the work the cheapest. If you go above them, that's great. You're more expensive. You're not doing a race to the bottom. But if you used a different pricing model, you potentially could charge even more and justify it even more. Seat-based is also a very common software pricing model. Spotify also had it where you're paying per rental. It's very, very common. It's actually been figured out because of usage-based pricing, where so many of these software products that were seat-based have introduced an AI element to the product, and now they need to charge for the AI usage, and the seat-based pricing doesn't cover the actual cost of running that business. Number 6 is value-based. This is one of my preferences. It is where you use the value that your customer gets out of your product to estimate how much that product is worth to them. It is a little harder to calculate because it can be very intangible, but it generally is just it goes very well with product marketing, value propositions, and explaining to people that just getting the product is not actually what they're buying. They're getting all these things that the product unlocks for them. Number 7, we have dynamic pricing. A good example of this is Uber, where if a lot of people want it, it becomes more expensive. It's also a play on supply and demand. Flights, the closer you get to a flight or a hotel being booked out, the more expensive it can get. This requires a lot of data to be able to do accurately. And so it's usually not an accessible pricing model to many businesses because it is quite complicated to do it, but we've definitely all encountered it. Freemium is also something we've definitely all encountered, where you can download a game on your phone that's free, but it has paid elements that unlock certain parts of it. It's very common in B2B as well, where it's free to get a Slack account, but then if you want certain features, you have to pay for them. It goes together with what's called a land and expand strategy, which is your growth strategy, which is just get a foot in the door. And then from there, it's easy to upsell. But if you're trying to sell from day one, it's a more complicated process. Whether or not that's effective depends on you and how you're conducting this. The last example I have here is tiered. Tiered is where you might start with free, then you have premium, then you have like pro, and you've got one product can have multiple price points, where the price point might include some different things. Again, Spotify last week was a great example of this. They had 4 or 5 plans and they each had different things. They had different price points, they had different inclusions. Go check that video out for sure if you're interested in it. The last thing I want to say here is that these can be layered together. So again, freemium and tiered go very nicely together. Tiered and seat-based go nicely together, where it might be like 1 seat is this, 2 to 10 seats is this, 11 to 50 seats is this, and you can work discounts and bulk buying and scales of economy into the pricing. You can also do competitor-based with seat-based, competitor-based with usage-based. You can mix and match all of these. The ones that I think work together the best is where you start with valued-based, and then you can add in tiers, you can add in usage, it can get really complicated. If your pricing is really complicated, have a look at the models and have a look at how many of them you're stacking and see which ones you can take away. When you are explaining your price point to your customer, I know that I said you shouldn't be using these to justify the price, but you might be using these as line items on an invoice to match financial systems. If you are talking to a CFO, they're going to want to see the cost breakdown of the product because they need to match it to budgets that they are taking the money from. But you're not using these in the sales journey of explaining to your customer what it is that they're buying. What you are explaining to them in the sales journey is the pricing factors. These factors are influential. They don't determine the price, they influence the price. And because they are softer and they're more intangible, they can be used in marketing a lot more easily without that becoming a negotiation. If you said to someone, oh, well, we do tiered seat-based pricing and you have 2 employees, so you are in the 2 to 10 bucket, it's very easy for them to be like, okay, well, I only have 2, but I'm paying for 10. I don't like that. I don't want that. That opens a can of worms. If instead you had this person who happened to be a business owner, they wanted to buy your seat-based tiered pricing and they had 2 employees and they said, well, I don't want to pay for 10 seats. You can then turn around and say, well, you're not paying for seats. You are paying for risk and quality control. The risk here is that your 2 employees won't be aligned if they're not on the same system. They won't be able to share or do collaborative work if they're not on the same system. And in order to be on the same system, you have to pay the tiered thing because that's how big you are. There's no quality control because they can't see each other's work. This is a much more easy conversation to have when you're using pricing factors and not pricing models to explain and justify your price. So let's go through these really quickly. There are, again, infinite of these. These are the ones that I see the most commonly in my clients and in products and stuff that I buy. The first one is urgency. So urgency is where someone needs it now. I'm a service provider, and so people might come to me and say like, hey, Kayla, do you have availability? I really need this done by next week. I can turn around and say, well, I don't have availability, but I would be willing to work nights and weekends, overtime to get this for you because you need it really badly. However, in order for me to do that, I'm going to need to charge you a rush fee. I'm going to need to charge you for the inconvenience to me because you urgently need it. And your urgency is something that you need to be willing to pay for. The second one here is innovation. Innovation is where you are genuinely providing an innovative product that no one else has. You potentially own the IP to it, you have trademarks on it, you have copyrights, whatever. Maybe you have a patent. If this is a technology product, it's very easy to justify very expensive prices for something that's innovative because you're the only one who has it. The next one is switching costs. Switching costs is also kind of a very business to business value proposition, but it can also work in consumer contexts. So for example, if I run my business on Google and Amazon wants me to switch to AWS, well, I have to think about the actual cost to my business, the man hours that my staff are going to have to do, the risk of information loss, the inconvenience to me of switching my servers from Google Cloud to AWS. That's a very big example. A smaller example from a consumer focus is if I were to switch from a gas stove to an induction cooktop. That would potentially mean that some of the pans that I own are not compatible with the induction cooktop. And so I would need to buy pans in addition to the cost of changing the cooktop from gas to induction. So whenever you're thinking about someone needs to switch from a supplier, a type of product to another one, the one that you're selling, ask yourself what else around it do they need to factor in? And that will go into your pricing because it might actually mean that you make your product a little cheaper. It might mean that you hold your price, but you offer a gift with purchase. Maybe I get an induction cooktop installed, and with that induction cooktop purchase, I get a free set of pans to make sure that I can use it straight away. The next one is scarcity and exclusivity. This is also kind of a play on supply and demand. It's not necessarily innovation, but if you control the supply and there's a lot of demand, or if it's a rare item, Pokemon cards are very popular at the moment. People want the rare shiny cards. That is scarcity and exclusivity. The next one is personal identity, and I actually think this is a really difficult one to pull off because people need to already feel extremely emotionally invested in you or your products in order for this to be effective. It is often used by charities. It's often used by musicians. So if you check out the Ariana and Taylor Swift video that I did, like their merch is very identity driven with their fan base. It's very status signaling. Again, you need fans for this to happen. The next one is willingness to pay. This is an individual personal willingness to pay. If I have a best friend's birthday coming up, I'm willing to pay for an expensive gift. If it is an acquaintance's birthday, I'm not so willing to pay. I'm still looking for a birthday gift. I'm still looking for the same product. I'm still looking for the same value proposition, which is to tell someone in my life that I care about them. But the amount that I'm willing to pay is very different. This also goes into sales periods. If we are approaching Christmas, where everyone is already in a gift-giving mood, or it is click frenzy where everyone is looking for deals, everyone is like, I've been saving up all year to buy all this stuff, then you have a collective willingness to buy, which means that impulse purchases become far easier. It also means that people might increase their budgets because they're like, oh, what's an extra 50 when I've already spent 500? Their mind is open to purchasing. This is related but separate to the economic factor. So the economic factor is the external factors, where willingness to pay is internal and individual. Economic is, is the economy doing well? Do people have disposable income? Has the cost of goods gone up too much? And are people in saving mode or spending mode collectively? The next one is quality. So instead of saying something like, this is a 100% natural fiber, wood, timber bookcase, you could instead say, like, this is a beautiful bookcase that will last you for generations. This is a heritage piece. This is a heirloom piece that you can pass down to your grandkids. It's so well made that it will last. So you can focus on the quality of the materials, but you can also turn that into more of a story, more of an emotional value proposition where you're talking about longevity, lasting. If you're selling something that also has a disposable version, you can talk about you only need to buy it once, you don't need to buy it 10 times, and it will last you forever. Quality is a very common pricing factor, but a lot of people fall short of truly grasping the extent to which they can push this as a value proposition as well by simply just saying it's high quality. Okay, what does that mean? So what? Give me the next dot in this string of dots that I'm supposed to be connecting from I see this thing, I buy it. Lead me down that path, holding my hand very strongly rather than pointing to me and saying, oh, it's that direction. Really explicitly give me the conclusion step by step. Don't expect me to come to the conclusion on my own. The last one here is risk. Risk can be a company thing, it can be a personal thing, it can be a parental thing. Again, just Spotify is fresh on my mind. So the parental controls is a risk mitigation feature within the family plan. It's applicable to so many more situations than we think. Think about, again, going back to a wedding example. If I am booking a photographer, the more expensive photographer might have a better portfolio. And to me, that is risk mitigation. This photographer is not going to screw up on the one and only chance that they have to get these photos. If I go with a cheap photographer, there is a risk that they make a mistake because they're early in their career and they don't save the files correctly, or the files are corrupted, or they lose it, or the camera runs out of battery because they don't remember to charge it the night before. There's so many little things that go into risk that we don't always think of as risk, but they are. And the more that you can explicitly call this out, again, lead me to the conclusion, don't make me come to it myself, the more that we can justify having whatever price it is that you want to be charging for your products. I hope that was really informative. I actually love this topic, so I love talking about it. I could go on about it forever. And I have a free downloadable PDF. I will put the link in the description of this video. Basically, it just runs you through the pricing factors and gives more examples of where they're applied and asks you, is it applicable to your business? If it is, like, how would you go about messaging this? And it's just a free workbook to apply this specifically to your business or products. And I hope you download it and I hope you get some good piece out of it. If you found this helpful, leave this video a like, subscribe to my channel. I do pricing content every week. And if you have a specific question, just leave a comment. I will get back to you.